So, as we talked with VMware being everything VM, then VMs, then VM has been kind of like go-to thing for everything backup. There are other guys, and we're going to talk to them as well. But what is Kasten, and what kind of solution under? I understand it was a separate company bought by Veeam, and for a particular reason.
Yes, we are, as you know, we grew up from the virtualization backup. We were working very close with the VMware, and then we learned that there's a new wave coming. Yes, 20 years ago the virtualization started, and everything became like virtualizable. You could move the physical workload to the virtual workload, and then you need to protect it. Now we are modernizing the applications. We are moving to microservices. We are moving the workloads from virtual machines to the containers. We are moving them between cloud and on-premise. So the infrastructures are becoming way more complex and way more diverse. And in order to understand it and to protect it, you need to have a tool that does understand the different environment, different workloads being built and operated in a different way. So therefore, rather than developing our own solution from scratch, we try to actually find someone who is like VM was 15 years ago, that is a startup company that was designed and built from the very beginning in this Kubernetes environment, that natively knows how to work, operate, and protect the data, and protect the services. Because it's not only about the protection of the data, it's about protection of the whole chain of value, the application, the service, and the business value that comes from the application for the end user. So
how does this all on Kubernetes differ? What is?
It's just like a different construction of the application. It has multiple services behind. It has multiple points of the data. In the old days, it was kind of like assumed that containers and Kubernetes itself does not contain any data, that the data is stored outside of it, and it's just a service. It's just a process or set of processes and services. And the same story as it was in the VDI, where we all believe that VDIs are kind of processing environments where individual workers are working on, but the data is stored centrally. And then we learned that it's not the case. The same happened to containers and Kubernetes, actually. We believe that this is just a process that doesn't have to be protected, and therefore the data sits outside of it. And at the end of the day, we, by heart, learned that the data is there, is being stored and processed within containers and Kubernetes environment, and it requires even more serious, more professional protection to give a confidence to our customers and to simplify their operations. Well, as an example, because we discussed earlier, so I just took some kind of a research, and we have a nice customer that is operating just across the sea in Sweden. They are doing automotive industry, and they are working on a software that works in this autonomous car space.
Okay.
And if you can imagine, by only deploying the automated data protection environment for their Kubernetes systems, they save 150 man-hours per month just spent on data protection. So it's like a huge saving for a company that employs 500 people, yes? So it is important, and it does really provide you meaningful savings.
But okay, the Kubernetes and the data. Okay, I understand there are some kind of persistent volumes that need to be backupped, probably. All of the applications can be just redeployed if there is something. So how actually kind of like just making backup of these persistent storage volumes differs from backing up some VMs?
It's much more dynamical. It's changing much more frequently. The backup system for the solution to protect the data from the virtual environment is pretty stable. You just apply one policy. The environment is kind of semi-automated, but stable. With Kubernetes and containers, it's much more dynamic. The system is changing quite frequently. And also,
you mean the developers are just creating new storage objects and whatever, and nobody has time to like...
From one hand side, yes. From the other, the whole environment is changing. The new microservices are just starting, doing something, and shutting down. So it's not stable. It's permanently on the move. And the cherry behind the Kasten solution is that it learns. It's kind of like self-learning solution that learns how the operational how the system is operating, is running, what are the services linked to it, and what needs to be backed up in order to provide a protection not only for the container of data, but for the whole value chain of the application, of the business application that actually runs on this infrastructure.
How do you protect the value chain using backup?
By providing an ability to restore the whole process itself.
Oh, okay, so you can basically, you are able to, because you need to kind of like trace the data across
the data and the applications and all the links between them, yes, exactly. So if you have the understanding of the full map, how it really runs, then if it's needed to recover something, you don't have to manually recover item by item and then link them together in the fully operating environment, but just click and redeploy everything just already operating.
Okay, and I understand that you are actually kind of like especially seeing that kind of like the Kubernetes and containers in the let's say Kubernetes and containerization. Baltic countries and Estonia are kind of like leaders or.
Well, I'm working...
Or lagging behind, or what's our position?
I'm working in the region for like 20 years, more or less. And specifically, I learned by heart that this market, the Estonian market, and broader even Baltic markets, are much more advanced than the rest of my territory. I'm working in the Central Eastern European countries. So, like many companies grew up, popped up here. Well, we all know Skype, yes? That's the local company. Probably the most known, but that's like a public company from the providing services for the individuals, yes? But there are very many industry-specific, highly advanced software houses that are building solutions that are very unique, one of its kind. And these guys are so advanced in their thinking that they are deploying and using the modern technologies like the first one in the world. So I would say that if I would need to put a bet where to start with containers, where else if not here?
And actually, yeah, you made me think that we always kind of like speaking about, I don't know, Skype or TransferWise or Verif or some kind of like foremost names. And then when I'm visiting some less known names like Playtech, which is also very well known, but actually, do I know what kind of complexity of problems they are solving? I was on a Dev Club meetup there. Wow, this is kind of like not a playing machine, but it's a computer science company. All of the problems they're describing are just so interestingly complex. And yes, I'm meeting often companies that are doing some kind of like automating whatever strange part of life of whatever businesses. And there is so many players who we talk too little about. Do you have kind of like some stories where you have actually seen that how the complexity of restoring the Kubernetes has helped, because probably the backup has the two parts. There is one part of like doing the backup, and then another one is actually getting the complex things up. What are the cases when it tends to happen, and how long does it take? Or you can't say the clouds are different, but like
that depends on the specific individual customer.
Yeah.
But I mentioned already the automotive company from over the sea, but there are also several banking, fintech companies which we're working with, and they are actually facing very similar challenges as the automotive companies, because at the end of the day, the end user is an individual customer that either drives a car or uses a banking service. And their demands are growing. They're much more serious, much more complex. So if you want to retain the customer, we want to offer something very unique, very universal, but very unique for this particular individual. So the overall solution is very universal, but the specific approach toward this individual customer must be very much person-oriented. And the complexity behind it, from the application standpoint, from the services standpoint, sometimes requires to run an individual application or a function for this specific customer to tailor the solution for his specific needs. So one of the banks which I'm referring to actually decided to build very personalized service. And it turned out to be fantastic from the user experience perspective, but it took hundreds of hours per week to maintain it. So the saving by automation just let them save a lot of time, effort, and also provide the higher customer satisfaction. So it's not only about technology, it's also about the user experience and just the balance between the two.
Mm-hmm. So actually making sure your cloud backups working is kind of like a, I don't know, full-time work, because I've honestly never thought about the backup has been backup for me, but understanding where it is, do I kind of like install a product and it does the work? Do I kind of like buy consulting if I have, I don't know, medium-sized some kind of clusters? How do I get started with these things?
I encourage you to just visit kasten.io, not kasten.com, kasten.io.
Okay.
Yes, and maybe download the free version and try it on your own. It's a very simple product, but very advanced from its in its simplicity. But from the other hand, yes, if you have any questions, we are free to help here on the booth. But also, the most important thing is to understand that backup is simple, that everyone can do it. The most complexity comes when it comes to the renewal. Sorry, to the restore. If you have to restore the data to the production environment, that's the problem you are facing, because you are doing that under pressure, sometimes being exposed to a risk from the customer side, from your manager side. It's never easy. So yes, backup is easy, but we provide restore within the backup solution, so that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.